my answer is always buy something that you like.
Right.
But don't buy it because of the value. Buy it because if the value goes down, you don't mind keeping the car and driving the car.
Right.
Yeah.
Welcome to Set Life, where we tell stories from our industry. I'm Kelly Leger, and this is Amber Buteau. Hey guys, we are coming from Studio One here at For the One Studios, and we have our guest with us today, Juan Martinez, and we are talking all about cars. If you're a car lover, you've come to the right episode today. Juan, tell us who Juan Martinez is. Tell us what you do. Tell us your history. Talk to us.
Well, thank you for having me over.
Sure.
It's a pleasure. Actually, my first podcast, so I'm kind of a
This
little
is the
nervous.
Oh, wow. Welcome.
Hopefully it doesn't affect the production.
We're honored.
Yeah.
I'm born and raised in Colombia, Bogota. That's where I am from. I moved to the States when I was 22 years old, just following a career path. You're originally a graphic designer in Colombia.
Oh, wow.
And I moved here and started going to school for digital photography about 17 years ago, 15 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. I've been here in Houston since then.
Wow.
And then I met my wife, and now we have a 21-year-old baby.
Oh, wow.
Oh my.
20 months old baby, yeah.
Oh, 20 months. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, congratulations.
And he's my everything now. You change everything 360
Don't
degrees.
they? It's
yeah.
crazy how that happens,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's crazy how we have a baby and then like that all perspective changes.
Exactly.
It's
yeah.
amazing. It's
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah. About 12 years ago, I applied for this company called DriverSource. They needed some guy to come take photos of their cars and help with the marketing a little bit. And that's where I came in. And ever since, I've been working at DriverSource.
Wow.
It's one of the best changes that I have had in my life.
Oh, that's great.
Amazing.
And DriverSource is, tell us a little bit about DriverSource, because it's super cool what they do and what they specialize in, which is what you're really focused on when it comes to photography and videography and executing that marketing plan for them.
So DriverSource started in 2005 as the main idea was like a car club for whoever wanted to enjoy like a weekend, come over, drive a car around town for 30 minutes, an hour. And then they just start moving into sales and service and storage. So
not just any cars. This is not like
not
you're
just
gonna
any
get the
car.
Honda
Exactly.
Accord.
Yeah.
You're gonna get like a
Yeah, the main idea was to deal only with exotics.
exact.
Yeah.
And then they started moving into classics, which they found more personal, like a better relationship with a classic car. They tell stories. You can tell a lot by what you find on the car when you are researching what location it has been. Some of the cars, we find them in Europe, we bring them over, and you can tell a lot of the owner of that car just going through the records. So it's a very interesting world. I was telling you guys before, ever since I was a kid, I was always into cars. And then I bring my passion with my studies on what I learned, and it's the perfect place to be.
Yeah.
Right? So
Well, here's what I love.
Yeah.
Creativity can go any direction. You can be a car lover and find your place in our industry.
Yep.
As a creative, like Juan did. Like that just says it all over again. Like I have a friend, we got to have him on the show sometime, who is the transportation coordinator for all the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And so he's in charge of anything with wheels, anything on the camera, anything behind the camera.
Yeah.
So a lot of famous cars, those kind of things. But he's also creative, and he's in our industry. But he found his niche in our industry through automotive.
Yep.
So someone says, "I'm a mechanic. I change oil. I do this." There's actually a place for you in our industry.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's a wild. I mean, that's a wild story how you landed there.
yeah, exactly. And then it just creates a very close relationship. It's like you say, it's not a Honda Accord.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's not one of the million. It's just this particular car that for some reason the first owner decided to get it on green instead of red, or get it on gold because you know, his favorite color was gold.
Yeah.
Right? So it always tells a story of how the life is being, who has been handling this car, how organized this person was, how picky this, you know, has a little scratch, or he
So great.
painted the whole fender. You know, stories
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
See what he's doing with the story thing?
I know. I really am loving that part. It's, you know, how, so we'll put up in the episode your images of the last car you shot here underneath the softbox here, which are unbelievable. I mean, they're magical photos. Truly, they are. But the car, what made it so great, we've had all kinds of cars through here, but what made it so great was the story behind the car that we'll put up. And if you give us the other cars that you shot here too, we'll toss some of those in too. But we have the photo, we have a wall here of all the things that have been shot here and things that have been done here. And so he was gracious to give us one of the photos to put on the wall. But tell the story about the car that you shot, the red Ferrari that you shot here. Tell us about that.
So it is a 1972 Ferrari 246 GTS Dino, first owned by Cher and Bono, Cher and Bono.
Yeah.
Sonny and Cher, yeah.
Sonny and Cher Bono.
Yeah.
So they were the first owner of the car. It was mainly for Cher. She owned the car for about 16 months, 17 months. And then it was sold to the grandchild of Cord, or the guy who founded Cord.
Wow.
Car-wise, you know, it's a big industry, it's a big make. He owned the car for a couple of years, and then it was sold to the third owner, which is called Donald McDonald's, or Donald forgot his
McDougal?
name. He was the designer of the Golden Bridge. He's an architect. He designed the Golden Bridge. He designed
The Golden Gate Bridge.
and a couple of bridges in New York, and he owned the car since, I believe, for over 40 years, 4 decades.
Oh, wow.
We found the car in 2013 on his garage. He had a building, a house, and the garage was on the corner. The car was on the corner of the garage, red with black, which is the original colors. Very cool finding. Since then, we sold the car to a collector, and he started restoring the car. And then COVID happened, and he couldn't finish the restoration. And he decided, you know what, I just don't have the time for this, so I'm just gonna sell the car back to you guys. We ended up buying the car back and finishing the restoration.
Wow.
So it's basically a brand new car, probably better than when it left the factory, with the super cool story of ownership.
And what's so cool is like that guy had owned it for 40 years. Y'all found it in the corner of the garage with like boxes all on top of it, not touched. You know, you've heard that story about, it's that fictitious story about the rich man that tries to give his daughter all the cars, and all the while there's this like old rundown car, and she's like, I don't want that because of the way it looks. But actually the car's value was worth like $1 million.
Right.
And so you just don't ever know what you're looking at it sometimes, to think that this car, which is now on the market for, I don't know if I can say, but a lot.
There is a funny story now that you mentioned that. So it was similar with the Lamborghini Miura, I believe it was. So back on the 70s, there was this international student. I believe it was from Saudi Arabia or something like that. And her father, he wanted to get some money over to her, but he didn't want to pay the taxes and all the taxation and fees that he had to pay. So the way he did, it was to send over a car, which was a Lamborghini. Say, I'm gonna send you this car. You keep it there, sell it, and that way you can get the money that I'm sending you. So I don't have any following, or they cannot track the money and stuff like that.
Wow.
One day she received the car and she started driving the car. One of the nights she got crazy, started drinking with friends and stuff like that, and she crashed the car.
Oh my gosh.
So she didn't want to tell, of course, she didn't want to tell her father what happened. So she hides the car, disappears. and his father doesn't know what happened with the car. Nobody knows what happened with the car. She files a police report that the car was stolen.
Oh my God.
So she can get the money. And then the police start tracking and saying, okay, we're gonna find the car. And then finally they find the car. It's all crashed, destroyed basically. And they say, okay, so we need to find how the accident happened. And they start, talking to people, getting stories together, and they find out that she was the one behind the wheel when the accident happened, and it became like a big deal. So the father not only lost the money, he was the daughter was filed as a scammer because she got the money.
Oh my gosh.
And everything tracked back to her father. When he was trying to avoid all the headaches of taxation and stuff like that, he got a bigger headache.
Oh my gosh.
This is the type of story that the car tells.
Yeah.
It's just they have their own personality.
Yeah.
It's just,
And this is the kind of person that you want running your marketing for any company.
Yeah.
Someone who loves story, who can find story even in vehicles. That's a big deal. Like,
and then can execute it behind the camera.
Totally.
And tell the story with the photos. We were looking before, when we have guests on, Kelly and I read the things that y'all fill out, and we look into your companies and stuff like that, things that y'all have shot and done. And we most of the time are admiring all the things that y'all do so great. And there was this one video that you had shot of this car. It was an old, I don't know what kind of, I'm not great into all the vintage cars, but it was one of the older cars, and like the sun was just hitting on it beautifully, and it's outside, and it was just like, oh my gosh, you just fell in love with the car, and it told a story. The little video told a story about how beautiful this car was.
the prettiest, shiniest sheet metal you've ever seen.
It was, and Kelly was like, look, I would totally drive this car. He was like drooling over the video.
Yeah.
They are not only shiny all the time. We have had some very cool finds that they are like in pieces. We got this Lamborghini Countach, which was the Geneva Auto Show car, one of only 5 or 3, I believe, that it was with that particular design, body-wise, with this 5.0 engine. So they were like Lamborghini was researching if the engine was better suited for this car, so they used parts from the old Lamborghini Countach with new technology. Let's put it that way, right? And then it was owned by this I forgot the name. It was a big rock star on the 80s. He bought the car. It was his daily driver. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a Lamborghini Countach. It's a big car, very uncomfortable to drive. It's beautiful to look at it, but to drive is a nightmare. The visibility is really poor. You actually have to step out and sit on the seat of the car to back it up, because it's really, really hard to drive. He ran out of money. He spent all his money, and he ended up living in the car. Which, if it's uncomfortable to drive, just imagine how uncomfortable it is to live in the car.
Oh my gosh.
We found the car on a garage in California, on a shop. The owner of the shop was servicing the car because this rock star, he took the car to him to get it fixed. And the guy said, you know what, it's gonna take a lot of time, it's gonna take a lot of money. So why don't we do this? Let's trade in the car. I get your Countach and you can take this Ferrari 360 that I have in the shop. And the guy said, sure, yeah, I'll do that. I need a car. So the owner of the shop, he had that car there for decades, and he never started working on the car until he died. So his son started, well, I don't know what to do with this car, so I'm just gonna sell it. And somehow he found DriverSource. And he called and said, hey, I have this car, it's been parked forever, the engine is out of the car, but we believe all the parts are together and we can put the car together. The car can be assembled together. I say, sure, I mean, we go check the car and, we might be able to do a deal. So we bought the car. We started going to the chassis number. You guys know what the VIN number is. It's like the ID number for the cars. Yeah. And we discovered that this was one of the first cars with that engine, and it was the car that was presented by Lamborghini at the Geneva Auto Show. We found the letter original from Lamborghini that was describing the car as being as special. So there is a big guy who is called Valentino Balboni. He used to test drive all the Countaches that came out from the factory in Italy. And he's still alive and he still restore cars. So we flew him over just to see the car, and he said, yeah, this guy, he's probably around 70 years old, but his mind is very sharp. He remembers everything. He remembers every single car that he ever drove.
Oh my God.
So he came and told us, say, yeah, this is the car. This is one of the first cars from 1982 that we put the big engine on it, and we only made 3 like this, and has this badge. Is very special because that's one of only 3 cars had this badge on it. And yeah, I mean, the car is how I remember it. It's in pieces, but this is the car I remember driving back in '82 doing the test drive. So
cool.
It's not only shiny cars. Born finds cars that you find in pieces. They have a different kind of a story.
Yeah.
But you can tell crazy stories like this.
Not every story is shiny.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the truth.
That's the truth. Saying? Not every story. So there's been a bunch of other people though, like famous people that you guys have found cars from.
Yeah, we had. I remember the first car that I shot that it was a famous owner. It was Nicolas Cage, 1973 Carrera RS. And we always go beyond on researching the car, right? So we ended up finding a photo of Nicolas Cage getting in the car and driving the car when he was a couple with Elvis Presley's daughter.
Okay, yeah.
What's her name?
Priscilla was that
Priscilla was the wife.
The mom.
The mom, yeah.
She just passed away a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Slipping my
Oh
mind.
my gosh, I see her face right now.
Yeah. Lisa Marie.
Lisa Marie.
Mhm.
Boom.
So we found the photo of the car with Nicolas Cage driving, and she was on the passenger seat.
Wow.
So it was pretty cool.
Wow, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. That is, I just love all the stories behind, we talk about as creatives on the show, being in the industry, finding your place, and all the different ways that you can be in it. But I just got to say, what goes back to the old adages is story sells.
Story. Yep.
It's the story.
It's the story.
It's the story that we all relate to, that we love, you can look at a car and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then you hear the story behind it and you're like, all of a sudden the value's added to it.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the story of things is where the value lies in it.
Right.
That it was one of 3, that it was here, and then
Totally.
Displaced or wrecked and all these things. That story goes, oh, I just want to bring it back to life.
What about the DeLorean? So the 80s car, the DeLorean, that's all stainless steel on the outside. Basically, that's a failed company. It's hard you don't see DeLoreans all over the road. It didn't make it. But when you think of some of the most iconic 80s movies of all time, you think of Back to the Future, and the first thing you think of is the car, is that DeLorean. It just carries over. When you watch Ghostbusters, you think of the car. When you watch, I don't know, there's a bazillion of them, but they have the car, and that story carries through. And I love how you talked about, how much you can know about a person based on the car, movie writer. What they drive, you never even had to say anything about the character.
And then
what they stepped out,
what they do to the car,
and what they do to the car.
This
how do they drive
crazy.
the car? Everything.
Yes, how they drive it, what they do. Like he said, if they paint a certain part of it, how meticulous, how they see.
It becomes a character itself. Really.
Yeah. So what you said of the movies, we also deal with the. It was a Jaguar, 1962 Jaguar E-Type yellow that it was featured on the movie Wolf of Wall Street. So there is a scene when Leonardo DiCaprio is sitting inside a cafe, and then this guy comes and says, "Hey, what is that your car?" He says, "Yeah." And then they start talking, "How much is the car?" And he starts saying this number. He says, "Okay, if you prove me that you have this much money or you earn this much money, I quit right now and I start working for you." So the car that it shows is shown on that scene. We have it on our stores.
Wow.
With exactly the same plates, with the certification that was the car used in the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it just helps, it just, as you say, just the idea of putting that car on the movie is because on the 60s, whoever had that car, it was a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was showing how good he was doing in life.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And that's nowadays is the same thing.
Sure.
You can tell a lot of a person of depending on what he drives.
That's true.
Oh my gosh, it makes me want to ask so many questions. Like, what have you learned about people that drive certain cars? What type of person has a certain car?
It is. It's. I would say, it's very personal, right?
Yeah.
I was telling him, it just for car people, it's hard to remember names, but it's so easy to remember what car he was driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's true.
And we get this question a lot being in the business is, okay, what car should I buy so it can get value in the next 5 years? And I personally, my answer is always buy something that you like,
Right.
but don't buy it because of the value. Buy it because if the value goes down, you don't mind keeping the car and driving the car.
Right.
Yeah.
If the value goes up, great. And you're probably gonna love that car as much that you probably won't even sell it, even
yeah.
if they offer you 20% more of what you pay for it.
Wow.
But drive the car, enjoy the car. If you are trying to buy a car as an investment, you are not a car guy,
Right.
and you won't enjoy it.
Right.
You better put your money somewhere else.
Yeah. I say that all the time. I say my car is like driving. It's like a vacation to drive my car because it's just such an easy car to drive. I've drove a bunch of different cars, but I keep going back to the same car because I say it's like a vacation to drive. It's just so nice. It's easy. I put my makeup on when I drive. It's like my lifestyle. It's just easy to do. But cars can take you to a place, So we had bought like an old vintage truck. And it's like you got the windows down. It's like you just think I need to be going to the beach. Like I need to be at the beach. So when you get into that, it's like you close the doors and the clunkiness and all the things takes you to a place. My dad was a big car guy, and he restored old Vets and he restored old 1957 Chevys and like all these. And I was mortified as a kid when he would take me to school in one of these cars. I was like, please don't drop me off at the front. Just drop me off at the corner.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea, young. I just wanted to be dropped off in a normal car.
Right.
Like all the other kids. I didn't want to, and my dad was like, this is the coolest thing. And the seat was like this when you
All the
drove.
springs,
You're like bouncing. You're like,
It was like that one long seat.
Yes, it was
in
long
What do you call the
bench.
seat? The
Big bench.
yeah, it's the bench seat.
bench and
And that's what I dream when my son is big enough to go to school, just taking one of the classic cars.
Wow.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
for him, as you say, it might be like, I don't want you to drop me off
Embarrassing,
on this
right,
car.
yeah.
But for you as a dad or as a mom,
Yeah.
if you're a car guy, that's like the best feeling. And I'm looking forward for my son to be old enough that I can, take it to school and drop him off from his school with a cool classic car.
But the stories behind those and the memories that I have from my dad and all those cars, I wouldn't have had if they would have been normal cars.
Sure.
Like I remember us going certain places in them. He even got motorcycles. I mean, like all of those things that he fixed up and did in his own creative ways of restoring and taking in us places and doing things with us in them. Yeah. Back then I was like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing.
I know.
Now it's like a great memory that I have.
And you know what?
That's
This
great.
This happens all over the world. I mean, as you know, coming from Colombia and other places, we travel a lot. So we're in different countries almost every other month, and we spend a lot of time in Southeast Asia. And we will see, like, I'm a big fan of like old Range Rovers or anything that are like that are old school, but in that space. So I'll see these old Defenders that people have restored and are going through the outback or the bush of Cambodia or Thailand or wherever. And every time I see one, I'm like, now that's a car. That's a car I want out
All
here.
the G-Wagon trucks that are over there. You're like,
Oh, all of that.
what the heck? They're
I
so
know.
cool.
I know. No, they are. They're super cool.
Yeah.
So, okay. Question for you as a car guy. Oh, the mic keeps falling down here.
Okay.
Question for you as a car guy. What is your dream car? What's the one that you want to be taking your son to school in? What's the car? Which one tells the story and why? Tell me.
Yeah.
Tell
And
us
which
about
one
that.
have you not shot? What would you like to shoot?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I have the chance to shoot pretty much every single car that you can think of. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the newer stuff, and I don't have a following of what's, they have 5 different Ferraris that to me they look very similar, and I don't know the difference, right? On all cars, I think I have shot pretty much anything you can imagine. Even on McLaren F1, which is a very special car from the 90s, 94 and 95 and 96. They built it for 3 years. They only made a total of 66. And this car is so cool because you drive from the middle, and then you have 2 small seats on the side.
You drive from the
Oh
middle.
my gosh.
So this is basically a race car that is street legal.
Wow.
Mr. Bean used to have one car that I don't know if you guys ever heard that he crashed the car twice. And the insurance, that's the record. The insurance has paid the most money for a red car
Oh my
that
God.
he crashed.
my
He crashed it
gosh.
twice. And he sold it 3 years ago to a big millionaire in the Middle East.
Wow.
So this car is very special because the engine lid, as soon as you open the engine in the back, you see yellow paper, and that's 24K all over the engine bay.
An inch.
The reason why is because gold disperses the heat evenly, so it helps to cool the engine off, right? And the engineering on this car is crazy. The engine was built by BMW, was the fastest production car back on the 90s. It was reaching 155 miles per hour. It was crazy. So I had the chance to shoot one of those cars,
Oh my gosh.
which is the holy grail in car world, I
Wow.
think. I have shot 300 SLs, which are very big
Where do you
collector cars.
put all these photos? Do you have them? Like, I would think your house would have to be like wall to wall with like amazing.
This is a joke that my wife said. We don't have a single photo in our house. He said, "You're a photographer, and we don't have photos in our house."
No
my
photos.
Gosh.
Wow.
I now we started to put photos of.
I was gonna
my
say
child
this
and
has
stuff
got to be
like
a new
that.
challenge.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you've got to put one up.
But yeah, we don't have many photos at home.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm pretty much shot every car. Personally, one of my favorite cars is it's not really expensive. It's a Honda S2000.
Okay.
I dream about that car since it came out back on '99.
Wow.
And I got to a point that I can actually afford it now, and I bought it 2 years ago.
Wow.
Driving wise, is one of the best cars you can drive. The shifting is been known for being one of the best shifting feelings on a car, and that's one of the cars that I think I'm gonna keep forever.
Forever.
Ah,
Wow.
It's not a expensive car. It's not unattainable, right? People ask me what's my favorite car that I have driven, and it has to be 1960s Ferraris with the big V12 engine in it. I like that it's so raw to drive. Like the steering wheel is not easy. You have to put force on it.
yeah.
The shifting, you have to put force on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
The car moves like a boat. So suspension-wise, it's very raw. You have to know where you're going, and you expect the rolling on the seat when you make a curve. It's a heavy car, but the sound of the engine is just intoxicating. Like you want to keep going just to hear the engine in front of you, or you don't even need a radio on those cars because you are so in love with how the car sounds and how it feels that
Speaking of boats, I got a vehicle that you might have to drive someday. It's a 1972 classic Cadillac hearse. It's 22 feet long. It weighs 7,000 pounds. I bought it for a film project we have coming up. But it's like you will never forget it once you drive in a hearse.
No.
I mean, there's been a lot of people have driven in that thing.
Well,
not all of them were alive.
That's what I was gonna say.
Probably
I was
more
gonna
were
say
dead,
let's.
It does have a smell, but it's
Oh,
come
no.
on.
that's part of the history.
That's part of the story, man.
It
You know
is.
how many stories are in that hearse? My goodness. That's
There's got to be a million,
Listen.
and we could talk cars
I know,
all
I know, I
day
know.
and the stories behind them and all of that. But before we wrap up today, I want people to have the opportunity to follow you, look into what all you do, how to connect with you. How can our audience do that?
Well, usually lately, social media has been like the hit and the presentation card for anybody interested in it. It's DriverSource is the Instagram.
Okay.
We are very active on the Houston car community, so we go to coffee and cars, we go to different events that happens over the weekend. We have one big event that just happened on close to Kima on Sealy,
Yeah.
Texas. The show has been going for 24, 25 years.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I mean, we're really easy to find around. If probably you go to coffee and cars, you will see us with a couple of cars.
Okay. What's the address say on Instagram?
Right now, out for the coffee and cars?
Best way to find
Our-
the DriverSource.
It's
DriverSource.
The
DriverSource at
DriverSource.
DriverSource, and we'll put it down
Sure.
on the lower thirds too and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we'll put it in the, we put all the stuff. Yeli's our editor does a fantastic job of putting everything in the descriptions and all of that. So we'll get that from you, and we've just enjoyed hearing all your stories and
Definitely.
how you were able to take a love of photography and a love of cars and marry those together and find the perfect job to do what you do today. What a gift and what a blessing. And it's just been awesome to sit with you today. Thanks for sharing your stories.
Thank you.
with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me over.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
We loved it.
That was great.
Well, we are done, and we're going to see you next time on Set Life.